All right, so let's take a closer look at domains and kingdoms here. Um, so, main central questions we want to be able to answer. Number one, what are the three domains? What are the six kingdoms, right? If we're going to look closer at domains and kingdoms, that makes sense. We also want to be able to identify some characteristics from each kingdom, each of the six, okay? So, in our different systems, all right, taxonomy hasn't always been organized exactly the same way as it is today. Linnaeus, who we talked about in the last video, identified two kingdoms, right? Just plants and animals. Remember, he was working in the 1700s, so microscopic organisms were, still kind of coming into science, right? Their awareness of them and, their understanding of them. So he only was classifying those things he could see, right? Plants and animals. Recently speaking, there have been identified 5 kingdoms. And if you look in our book, you'll see that there are 3 domains and 6 total kingdoms. So that's where we are today. Now, the domains, all right, are the largest taxa. Okay, so they're the most general way you can describe something. There are 3 domains in total, and they all describe a cell type, a certain type of cell that's present in the organism. The domains are bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. All right. And pretty simply speaking, all right, the differences are right here. You need to know these differences, okay? So that's why it's all in red. The bacteria domain has the Eubacteria kingdom underneath of it, okay? Eu means true, right? Just like eukaryote. So all of the true bacteria fall under the domain bacteria. All of your unicellular prokaryotes are eubacteria. In the domain archaea, there is the Archaebacteria kingdom. They're very similar to bacteria, but their cell walls are different, all right? And it's thought to be a kind of ancient evolutionary branch between bacteria and eukarya. Domain eukarya has all 4 other kingdoms. So all eukaryotes fall under eukarya. So let's see kind of what that would look like. So we have the domain bacteria. So here's bacteria. Underneath of it, we have the Eubacteria kingdom. So here's our kingdom, right? And here's our domain. Under archaea, we have bacteria. Then under eukarya, we have fungi, right? It says the other 4 kingdoms. So we have fungi, we have plantae, we have animalia, and we have the other one, which is completely escaping my mind right now, but we have the 4th, which we'll see here in a minute. I can't remember it. Wow. Anyway, all eukaryotes, all right, that are underneath or all eukaryotes that exist, rather, right? Every single thing that has a cell with a nucleus, right? Just like all of our cells and all the plant cells and all the fungi cells, right? They all fall under eukarya, okay? Yeah, we'll come back to that. All right, so let's look at eubacteria first. So the bacteria all fall under eubacteria. They are prokaryotes, all right? And this is important. Their cell structure is based on peptidoglycan. All right. So this sugar protein builds the cell walls of our prokaryotes. They are always unicellular. They can be autotrophs or heterotrophs. And they're shaped. They have shaped-based names, rather. Their names are based on their shapes. But here's the big thing about eubacteria. Eubacteria has cell walls with peptidoglycans, and they're all prokaryotes. Okay. So here are some examples of eubacteria. You'll notice that none of them have nuclei. All right, and these might be things you've seen before, right? Like think about strep throat, which is given to you by Streptococcus, or if you have tuberculosis, I think, comes from Mycobacteria. Syphilis is caused by a spirochete. Staph infection are caused by a staph bacteria, right? You may have seen some of these before, okay? Here's another picture you've probably seen this year, right? Notice there's no nucleus. There's just DNA in the middle, right? And then you have a cell membrane and a cell wall. Again, both. And this cell wall is made of peptidoglycan, right? That's the its composition. Now, Archaebacteria is the ancient bacteria kingdom. Again, we're talking about prokaryotes, but the cell walls in Archaebacteria are made without peptidoglycan. All right, so that's the big difference. All right, they're still going to be unicellular. They can be autotrophs or heterotrophs, but these are often what we call extreme bacteria. They live in like crazy places. So maybe they live deep in the ocean by those deep sea vents, or they might live in really high salt areas like in the Dead Sea, or they might live in a place like this, right, in Yellowstone. So all these pretty colors are caused by bacteria, and this water temperature is 189 degrees Fahrenheit. So it would instantly kill most anything else that lived there, but those extreme bacteria live there just fine. A lot of times they look like this. They can cluster up together. This is just an image of Archaea. Protista, that's the one we were thinking about that I couldn't remember. The kingdom Protista falls under the eukaryotes. So we have eukaryote, right? And we said there were 4 kingdoms. And remember a minute ago, I couldn't remember what the other one was. It's Protista. So we have fungi. We have animals. We have plants. And we have protists. Right? All of these, all right, are eukarya. That's the domain. So eukarya is the only domain that has multiple kingdoms under it. So the first kingdom we're going to look at is Protista, or the protist. Now, the structure of the protist can vary, but they all have a nuclei. They all have organelles. They're mostly going to be unicellular. There's a few exceptions. They can be autotrophs or heterotrophs. And we've already learned about 3 protists this year. We talked about the amoeba, the paramecium, and the euglena. So you've probably seen some pictures like this before. All right, so when we talk about them, we talk about like the contractile vacuoles in the amoeba, or the pseudopods in the amoeba. We looked at the flagellum in euglena. We looked at, a couple of videos of these guys. So we've seen them before, but these are our protists, okay? The next kingdom is fungi, all right? These are the funguses, or the fungi, all right? They're all eukaryotes. Now, again, they have a cell wall, but it's made of chitin, all right? So when you see a fungus, it has a cell wall, but that doesn't mean it's a plant, all right? That's a different kingdom. These cell walls are made of chitin, and there are no chloroplasts, okay? So fungi are decomposers. They're not doing photosynthesis. Because of that, they can only be heterotrophs. Fungi are not autotrophs. They don't make their own food, okay? They can be multicellular or unicellular. Yeast is a unicellular fungus, okay? And you've probably seen a mushroom before, right? Here you go, bunch of mushrooms. These are truffles right here. That's a truffle. This is a morel. Morel mushrooms grow here in Virginia. You can eat them. They're delicious. Okay. Here's a picture of yeast from under a microscope. It is a single-celled fungus, all right? And there it is. Now, plants, all right, also eukaryotes, but their cell wall is made of cellulose, all right? And hopefully you remember from macromolecules, you see ose, that tells you this is a sugar, Okay, they have chloroplasts. Plants are autotrophs, right? They make their own food. They're all multicellular. You can probably think of an example of a plant, right? So like moss, grass, corn, trees, you know, rose bushes, that kind of thing. Animals, right? Our last kingdom of the four. Again, eukaryotes. They have no cell walls, no chloroplasts, neither one. And because of the fact they don't have chloroplasts, they're heterotrophs, right? And I'm sure you can think of some examples of animals: sponges, worms, insects, us, right? Um, all the reptiles, so dinosaurs, whales, Komodo dragons, iguanas, finches, right? Cardinals, bluebirds, all of those fall under the kingdom Animalia. All right, so hopefully you can name the three domains. You know the six kingdoms, and you can tell me at least one major characteristic of each kingdom. Something to focus on here. Cell walls, all right? The composition of the cell walls. That's going to be important, okay? If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be glad to give you a hand.